everybody. Andrew Marston here with another episode of the Square Community Spotlight, where we get to know members of the Square community here a little bit better. And today we have the privilege to be joined by the one and only Nicole Snyder. Nicole, thank you for taking time to be here.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to talk about stuff.
Yeah, me too. I mean, so you and I took animation boot camp together just about a year and a half ago, I think. And
Yeah,
since
it
then,
was it was fall 2020, so yeah, we're at we're a little over the year mark.
yeah, and since then it's been crazy to see how everybody has progressed. I mean, you especially, which is one reason that I thought of you to highlight here. So could you tell us first where can people find your work online?
So primarily you can find my work on my portfolio, which is nicolesnyder.tv. And then I also am on Instagram at the same handle, nicolesnyder.tv, although I'm not great at updating it. I feel like I go through spurts where I post a lot and then I stop because I get really busy and then I'm like, oh, right, I should update this.
Yeah, I feel that for sure too. So let's just start, you know, with the basics. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and also the background of how you got there?
Sure. So I am a full-time motion designer at a company called EAB. So I'm in-house. EAB is like a for-profit company where we focus on the education industry, helping universities, but also K through 12 schools with anything they might need in terms of like student success. So whether it's like they need a technology platform or they need research and they need marketing services, we kind of do it all. So it's a lot about serving education uh, like schools basically to help them, help their students. And so
Awesome.
in
Yeah.
terms of my background, I'm a career changer, which I'm very proud to be. For the first 6 years of my career, I was actually in communications and PR, so very different from what I'm doing now. Um, and I'd always sort of, I'd been dabbling in like Adobe products since high school, but I didn't go to college for it. I was an English and government major, and at one point thought I wanted to go to law school. And so I think by the time I got into like the working world, if you will, I just thought it was like too late for me to go into design. And so I was like, all right, I'll stick with, this communications path, which I kind of completely just fell into. And because I have writing skills and I've always been a really big writer, I was sort of just like, all right, this is a good fit for me. And so I worked in that field for 6 years doing all sorts of things, running social media, talking to reporters, writing, anything, press releases, op-eds, statements, all of that stuff that you see out in the news, pitching to reporters, helping run websites, like sort of the gamut of communications. And I would say around like year 5, so this would have been 2019, maybe somewhere around 2018, I was like, I don't think that I'm feeling like this is what I want to do. And I could tell because I was feeling really like creatively stunted. I could tell I had all this like pent up creative energy that I didn't know like where to go with that. And that, I was like doing all this work that I actually didn't find very fulfilling. And so in 2019, after I like waffled on it for a really long time. And eventually I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to quit my job, which I don't recommend for everybody, but it's just something that like in the moment felt, or not in the moment, but at that time felt like the right thing. So I quit my job and I had been really focusing on like video a lot. I was like, video seems to be the way things are going. It's a great storytelling method because at the heart of what I enjoy doing still is helping people tell stories, helping them find like the best way, the most engaging way to tell their stories. And so I was like, video is really where things are going and like the best way that, or at least one of the best ways that you can storytell. And so I want to get into more of a visual medium with what I'm doing. So I quit my job and decided to start a YouTube channel just because I thought like that'll, like I want to be in a space where I'm learning, where I'm forcing myself to have to like pick things up quickly and just figure it all out. And so I was like, sure, I'll just, I borrowed a camera from a friend. I like taught myself all about like, how do I light things and how do I take B-roll and how do I edit my audio and all of these things, and just kind of started and taught myself Premiere Pro along the way as well. And that was really fun, but I was still sort of feeling like, I don't know if I want to be the person behind the camera. I don't know if this is quite for me. And I think I made like 15 YouTube videos. And, the goal of it was just to explore and figure out like, what am I interested in? What am I drawn towards? What do I want to do? And I started like dabbling with After Effects, midway through this channel of mine, because I had noticed that people were doing really cool things with title cards, and I was like, oh, I want to try that out. So I, would find like a YouTube video of like, here's how to make some text move. And so I just downloaded After Effects and decided to play around with it. And there's a siren going by. Sorry if you can hear that. But,
It's fine. It's fine.
living in DC, I forgot to mention, I live in Washington, DC. So it just snowed here. So it's a little crazy. Anyway, so yeah, I opened up After Effects for the first time in April 2020.
Really?
So,
Wow. So
and
sorry to cut you off. So
no, that's okay.
you're
Sorry.
telling me that April 2020, you started using After Effects, and here we are. When did you get hired as a motion designer?
I got hired in February 2021.
So that's less than a year from I open After Effects to I'm a full-time motion designer.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a little, it's been a little surreal.
That's I mean, you should be proud. Congratulations. That is a huge feat. I think you might
Thank you.
undersell like dabbling in After Effects on my probably I suspect you devoted yourself to it quite heavily, but if anybody out there is watching and hoping to make a career in motion design, Nicole Snyder took less than a year. Like there is hope. If you think it's too late, it's not too late. Um, anyway, sorry, I'm just so impressed by that, and I cut
No,
off
it's
your story. But you opened After Effects in April 2020. Um, did your parents when you were like in your mother's womb, did they play like Evan Abrams through headphones on
not as far as I'm
like
aware. My
how?
parents are not like super creative people or anything. Like they're definitely not designers or anything along in the visual space. So I don't know.
That's
It
amazing.
it just sort of clicked for me, I guess. And I did dabble for a little bit, and then I had a part-time job working in like an admin field just to like make some cash on the side. And with the pandemic, I felt like their video team needed some help, and so I sort of pitched myself as like, hey, I can come on and help with like video editing and whatnot, and randomly put After Effects on my resume. And they called me out on it, and they were like, After Effects. And I was like, sure. And this was like June. And so I was like, and they were like, well, we really would love some explainer videos. Like, do you think you could create a test one? And I was like, sure. Like, I'd never done it before, but I'll give it a go. And so I just sort of taught myself along the way. They loved what I did. And so they brought me on, and I made, I think, 3 explainer videos with them over the course of that summer. And then it was sort of, they weren't able to like bring me on full time, so I decided to look for like other opportunities, because I really wanted to be part of a team first and learn from people rather than go freelance right away. So I ended up finding my current position and getting hired in February. And I was supposed to actually be, so my title was motion graphic designer, but I was supposed to be doing like 60% graphic design, 40% motion design. But since I've been hired, I've been doing 100% motion design, because
That's kind of
everybody loves animation right now. So,
that's how it goes. Jeez, you're an inspiration. That's
oh, well, thank
an
you.
incredible story. I had just assumed, based on the quality of your work and it seems like your familiarity with the industry, that you've been, digital creative at least since you got out of university. I'm curious. So, could you walk me through like a day in your work life, like a work day, they call it? Like what is it like being a full-time motion designer at this company?
Well, as probably most people know, no day is really the same, which is something that I love. I always want to sort of have my hands in a bunch of different things. But so maybe this is not a day per se, but I mean, so at my company, I do everything. I am the only motion designer on my team. I'm the only person who really knows what I'm doing, which there are pros and cons to that. But I really like it because it gives me a lot of leadership and responsibility opportunities. So I'm not just an animator. I'm the person who, someone wants to start a video, they reach out, I look at their script, I tell them like, hey, here are some, suggested edits, here's maybe some ways that, we could tell this better and we could maybe streamline something, what like the message that you're trying to get across, or maybe this doesn't even make sense as an animated project, but if it does, I'm the person who like concepts, what should it look like? I design it, or we also have other graphic designers who can help me, but primarily I'm the one leading the design and thinking of like, what should this look like? How are we going to visually tell this story? Meeting with, we call them clients, but they're all internal, but meeting with the clients, walking them through the storyboard and through all the design and making sure that they understand, how everything's going to move, what it's all going to look like, that they're happy with it. I do a lot of the audio editing. We have a video manager as well, or a video editor, and he helps to do some of the more high level, super technical stuff if I need. But I pick the music, I edit the music. I'm sort of becoming the de facto voiceover person at my company now. So I'm also doing voiceovers at times, which has been really fun. And then at the end of all of that, I animate it as well. And then we haven't gotten too far into sound effects, but at some point I'll start adding sound effects also, and then delivering it and just sort of project managing the entire thing as we go along as well. So it's really fun to be able to do so many different things that isn't just I'm in After Effects executing something, although I'm doing that plenty of the time also.
Yeah, it sounds like you're the motion designer and like the client liaison and the the art director and the producer project. You're basically doing everything. Do you?
And I have an art director and a creative director and things. So it's not like I don't have support at all, but
Sure.
I'm
I mean,
the key on all this stuff.
so that I guess the question that comes up to in my mind that I've seen on the square a few times is, like, do you think that you have to be able? This is more just general advice. Do you think that you have to be a good illustrator or designer to support yourself with motion design?
So on some level, I think you need to understand like how Illustrator and Photoshop, I mostly work in Illustrator, but you need to know how those programs work so that, even if you're not the primary designer, when you're given the work, you need to be able to make tweaks. You need to be able to sometimes teach designers how to design for motion. That's been a huge thing that I've done, even when I wasn't the designer on the project, because there are a lot of designers out there who are really good at what they do, but they don't know how to set it all up for design. Sometimes, even if it's just like don't expand your shapes, or don't outline your text because I want to be able to edit that in After Effects. Even small things like that maybe they might do as a default move, you might not want. So I think you need to at least understand the program so that if you need to, you can get in there and you can make those tweaks and edits. For me personally, I've always wanted to be kind of the person in control of the project, and that doesn't need to be for every project, but I'm happiest when I'm sort of like in control of it and kind of can really create like a vision and help steer the project. And to be able to do that, I need to be able to design as well as animate. So it's definitely the area where I'm still, I mean, I'm learning a lot in both really, but I feel like design is an area where I'm focusing and trying to get better and better at. And there are so many, there's so many also ways to kind of not shortcut it, but like, there's free pick, there's all these other websites out there where like I don't agree with like taking something and like just using it as it is, but you can use that as a jumping off point to then kind of make adjustments and edits and things like that. And when I came into my company, we had like a like a library almost of illustrations that we use in projects, and I'm able to pull from like things that designers are making that are, so it's already like well designed, but then I'm adjusting it and changing it for my project. So don't think that like when you come in as a motion designer and they expect you to design, that you're creating everything like wholesale from scratch, because that's not necessarily how it's going to be. And that really
Absolutely.
varies, I think, from company to company.
Yeah, and no, that was the perfect answer. I hope anybody out there wondering about that topic is helped by it. But the other aspect of your job that I'm curious for your perspective on is the fact that you are a salaried in-house position versus, for example, you could go freelance. Like, what's your thought process, or what's your opinion on freelance versus salaried and in-house? Maybe benefits,
Mhm.
pros and cons, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I really thought about this a little bit. I mean, for me, I decided not to go freelance right away because I really wanted to be in a team where I could learn, where I could have people to bounce ideas off of. And even though in my current position I'm the only motion designer, and maybe one day, if possible, it'd be nice to be in a position where I can have other motion designers looking at my work because they'd probably nitpick different things. I still like that I'm in a team. I have people I can talk to. We My team is really great also because every Tuesday, Thursday, we do something called design critique where we get together for half an hour in the morning. You share things that you've been working on. People kind of help you troubleshoot different ideas of like, oh, I'm not sure like what to do at this point, or it feels odd. What do you guys think? And so I love that sort of collaborative aspect where you have people that you can go to and just sort of troubleshoot ideas. And the other element that I really like about being in-house is that oftentimes for these in-house positions, you are the only motion designer. And that can be kind of scary at times because you're like, well, I'm doing the best I can here. But at the same time, sort of like I mentioned, I like being able to take responsibility and take leadership. And yeah, it scares me, but I think that that's where I grow the most is when I get to be in those positions. And I think it's partially because I have 6 years of experience, of work. So I already know how to project manage. I already know I was a manager for a while in my position. I've helped, train interns and things like that. So, even though I'm new-ish to motion design, I still feel like I don't think I'd be able to like always sit quietly in a corner or something and not share my thoughts or not be able to like jump in and join some of these bigger discussions of like, what are we actually trying to do? Who is the audience that we're trying to serve? Is this product actually going to speak to them? Sort of those really big picture questions. I feel like I really want to be involved in those. So in-house can be a really good way to do that if you're trying to be like on a strategy level.
There's so many things that you're dropping that I'd love to pick at just a little bit. One of them being the fact that you didn't have a formal education in art or design or film. Um, do you wish that you had studied that, or do you feel like your prior non-motion experience actually behooves you in this case?
I mean, I think if I like went back, if I was younger and was in college and did, like a graphic design course or something, I don't think that I would be less off because of that. But I don't feel like I need it right now. School of Motion was perfect, honestly, and I would not be where I am without School of Motion. I was teaching myself through like Skillshare and YouTube, and School of Motion really kind of helped solidify all of my skills, both design and animation. And I don't think that you like need a formal degree. And something that I think about also was like, I'm going to date myself. I think I went college was like 8 years ago or something. So, if I had done animation motion design back then, like probably the way the tools are working now, it would be different anyway. And one thing I love about our industry is that you have to constantly keep learning anyway. It's always about continually improving your skills. You're never done. There's always something new to learn. There's always some improvement that you can keep adding to your wheelhouse. So I don't feel at a disadvantage that I didn't major in art. And I'm really not a good drawer. So for a while, I did not think that I was going to be able to be a motion designer. And I don't think I would do well in art school because I don't really draw well. Um, in terms of like, did my skills that I do have help me? I mean, on some level, I really think that they have, and that's not to say that like if you went to art school, you're at a disadvantage sort of thing. But I do think that like being in positions where I've had to like pitch to reporters or communications is usually very closely connected to the CEO. So I worked with CEOs and helped them like walk them through events, help coach them on like what to say, how to present themselves when they're on camera in front of, a national audience and things like that. So I do feel like all of these skills, surprisingly almost to myself, because I didn't think that they would have any bearing. It's really been helpful to kind of bring that into this role and kind of just be able to think on my feet and not get like a deer in the headlights moment and be able to just kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, the perfect answer. And it was sort of a loaded question or a leading question for me because like I'm of the opinion that actually outside like experience outside of the creative field really brings a lot to the table. And looking at your Instagram and your portfolio, I mean, you're at a high level in motion design, and then the fact that you have this outside experience it makes me jealous, to be honest.
Oh,
And
no, no.
speaking of your portfolio and Instagram, let me switch scenes here. There we go. Would you mind? Is there a project that you would mind talking about and maybe giving us some background on?
Sure. Let me see. So, I mean, I can go with, the first one here. They always say the first one is your most important one here. So I would say my bread and butter is explainer videos. I love that, there's so many different moving elements to them. And so this one, as you can see, I was able to design, animate, audio edit, script edit, which we did go through a lot of script edits for this one. So, it was really fun to kind of think through all the different design challenges for this one. I don't know if I should go ahead and play it. It might be a little
Yeah, let's
louder.
just see what we get. I think I can actually mute the. Yeah, go ahead and play it. Let's see.
Higher education is changing. Economic.
Yeah, we had a lot of difficulties with this one. It's almost easier almost to scroll through it in some ways. But we had a lot of like how do we show people and their trouble, or not troubles, but like, the things that students struggle with, things that students are thinking about, that's not just like how do I pass my test kind of thing. And so we really wanted to capture that. And then this part's maybe a little jargony, which I was just not able to get out. But sometimes it's always a battle with jargon, I find. But um, one thing that EAB already really had that I really liked was they had already had a pretty good illustration style where they had already been bringing in characters, and they've already, had a lot of just really nice, fun illustrations that I can play with. And so I'm always just looking for ways for like, how can I do more? And actually, I really want to do more with like character animation this year and really bring these characters that they've already created to life. But this one was really fun. There's a lot of circle elements in the branding for Navigate already, which Navigate is like this platform that's almost like Blackboard in a way, but better, or at least more to it.
Hmm.
Really allowing like advisors to be able to help their students, making sure that they're succeeding correctly. So yeah, I looked at the script, and these were all sort of the visuals that I came up with.
This is my
And
favorite part.
yeah,
I love
and
this.
there is a match cut here, which I guess is coming up right there,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
it's funny because I'm in advanced motion methods right now, so I'm sure, and I'm like slightly terrified, but I'm sure like when I finish that course, I'll watch this and be like, that needs to be better. But always
Well,
improving.
I assure you, it is good enough now. I'm sure that you will improve and look back and say, "Oh, I could have done that better." But it's a fantastic job. Can you actually go back to that part where you have, I think,
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
six circle? Well, it's the one from the gift, but yeah, towards the
yeah.
end.
There we go.
Oh well,
This
the
part.
charts. There's a lot of good stuff happening here. Um, but these, can you talk to me about just the like I have some guesses on how you did this, but inside each circle, as they pop up, there's also animation going on, and then
Hmm.
you match cut them in a really smooth way together. But how do you remember how in After Effects you just some some behind the scenes information? How did you animate these inside these circles? For anybody
Yeah.
curious.
So I'm trying to remember exactly, but definitely these are all sort of like matted into circles. And then I basically have um, the school buildings essentially. They're either in their own layer, or like they're somehow like isolated from everything else around them. And then I added a little position, like exposition movement to it. They're eased so that they come in fast, and then like end kind of slowly. And I staggered them a little bit also so that they come in at different times. Actually, if I can watch them again, maybe it'll remind me a little bit more of what I did. Oh my god, I can't jump around on this at all.
I love the little accents off of the word bubbles, like little things like that
Hmm.
that they introduce in animation boot camp. I feel like you've really taken it to that polished level. Yeah, those little tiny
Hmm.
overshoots that you got going on when the buildings that reinforce that motion. When I saw that, I'm like, uh, Joey would be proud. I think.
I hope so.
I can't wait. Hit
Yeah.
play again. I want to see that match cut.
Oh yeah. This
Uh,
was just me. Like that took me a long since
Beautiful.
I haven't really figured out match cuts. I feel like that took me a really long time to play with, and like at one point it was going like boom, and then I was like, that's maybe a little too explosive, and so I tried to get it to where it was. But even now, like especially if I watch it frame by frame, I'm like, I don't know, it feels a little. So I yeah, I feel like it'll get even better as I take. of
Yeah, I can
AMM.
assure you, as someone who's not as familiar with the project, that match cut, it really hits the mark. Um,
Thanks.
and I think when you get to that part in AMM, you might just be bored because I'm like, yeah, you got the match cuts. Match cuts are my favorite transition because there's
Yes.
actually no motion involved in the transition, but it really sings as like a high end effect.
Yeah.
Um,
So that
but
continuation of motion where like it like tricks your eye and you're like, wait a minute, we're at a different scene. How did we even get here? And I
but I
think
kind of
that's
like it.
yeah. No, I
yeah.
really I mean AMM is like the class I've been waiting to take and here
You're
we
gonna
are.
crush it. You're gonna crush it.
Thank you.
Although they kind of hiring some suspect TAs for that course. I'm telling you, they'll hire
Yeah,
anybody.
you tricked me on that one.
Okay, okay. I did. You're right. Can we go to your Instagram for a second also? Just
Oh, sure, you
because I
can.
feel like there's a lot of good stuff there.
Hold on,
Yeah,
gotta
take
pull
your
up
time.
my profile.
Oh,
Oh, look,
Sarah
Sarah
Wade.
Wade, I follow you.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Can you play? I mean, there's a lot. Your Instagram, I think, is amazing. It's really nice to you have a consistent theme or style. But can you click on the newest post, which I think was for the
Oh yeah,
um,
this is
holiday
my
card?
school emotion.
This was one of my favorites.
Oh,
Can you
thank
talk?
you.
Can you talk to me about how some of the big concepts of how you did this?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I have to credit Evan Abrams' tutorial because I mean, I'm sure so many people have taken his stuff. He is such a great teacher. And so, I mean, I had read a lot. For anyone who's not familiar, the theme for this year's School Emotion card was "This Year I'm Thankful For." I read almost 50 books this year and have really like rediscovered my love of reading and as a way to like just chill out at the end of the day. So I really wanted to reflect that in this. And I, I kind of found this tutorial of like how to open a book and something else that I want to work on this year is playing around more with like 3D elements in After Effects because I feel like that's an area that I still have trouble visualizing a lot of. And so I thought this was like a fun way to challenge myself to kind of figure out how to make this book kind of open up. And there's even like a slight camera movement in here, which I haven't played with the camera all that much. There's just so much in After Effects. So I thought that this was a really fun project to create. And then within that, I guess let me just pause this. Like within that, I also just have these different illustrations to kind of show different, I guess, book themes you might come across, like fantasy, and this is more science fiction, and then there's like a pirate, and this is meant to be kind of crime, sort of noir sort of feel type thing. So
And
I was,
inside, those are all animated, and by
yes,
themselves, they probably could have individually been your holiday card submission. But no, we're gonna make four animations and combine it in an awesome 3D animation. I was very impressed.
thank you. Well, it's all very simple animations in here. I mean, this is literally just like a trim path of the line. This is just a circle like moving diagonally, and then I just sort of like matted this guy within the circle, and then for the dragon was maybe and this is just sort of a guy or a guy like a little robot or whatever just moving along, and I had some streaks of light going through here, and I think the dragon was the hardest because at first I was gonna have him static, but he actually does flap,
Yep.
and
How did you? Is that just a?
that's just a path animation. Like
Huh, uh-huh.
he was like this, and then I was like, okay, how do I like bring his wings down? And I just looked for a picture, and I was like, dragon with its wings down or something like that. And so I sort of found, I don't even know where I'm facing in the camera, but I kind of found an image of like the wings like this, and then just move the path of this wing down to match it. And this wing literally just like shrinks.
Well,
But for some reason, when it animates, it looks like it's flapping.
yeah, it reads fine, and there's a lot going on. But even if you were to focus on it, yeah, path. Of course it is. I was like, oh, okay, she probably maybe puppet pins and like some scale and like a
Yeah.
rig. But no, no.
Puppet pins are not fun.
If you don't mind, I'm going to transition us to the highlights and lowlights section, which I like to end with. And the lowlights, they don't have to be something like big and terrible and tragic. Like they can be, if you want to talk about that. But has there been a lowlight from your career that maybe you've learned a valuable lesson the hard way, or some anecdote that you'd feel comfortable talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of touched on it already, because I don't think I have like a huge low light where it's like I messed something up or made like a huge mistake. I'm sure I will at some point, but I've only been a motion designer for so long, so I haven't had that yet. But I would say, like, actually, we talked about, like, the importance of design as a motion designer, and it was something that I sort of struggled with trying to break into this role because, I didn't know design quite as well. I had taken animation boot camp and thought, like, okay, I feel ready. Like, I feel like I can animate. So let me go like look for a job. And I had met with someone from Creative Circle, who's this like creative recruiting company. And they were like, we don't think you're a motion designer. You don't have any graphic design experience. You're a video editor with like After Effects skills. And I was like, okay. So they were pushing me to like brand myself that way. And so for a while, my portfolio also had like video editing projects solely. And I was like, well, I really want to be a motion designer though. Like this is the area that I want to focus on. And so, and that's actually something that like, for my job, I interviewed for it and then I didn't hear for a few months because they were kind of interviewing other people and things like that. And even when I interviewed with them, they were like, oh, how comfortable are you designing? And I was like, I'm getting there. And so through interviewing for jobs, I sort of realized I think I need more design skills because DC is not, the land of studios. We have like one really good animation studio, and otherwise it's a lot of in-house or production companies, things where they want you to be that jack of all trades. And I didn't want to leave this area yet. So I actually, like, because of interviewing and realizing that I needed more design skills, I took Illustrator and Photoshop Unleashed in the winter 2021, so January, February of 2021 session.
Oh, you took that after?
Yeah, I took it after animation bootcamp, which is like a weird way to go and probably not the way that School of Motion recommends. And I was also a little like, am I going backwards? Is this weird? But I learned a ton from that, and like I became extremely comfortable in Illustrator, especially from that class. And so I actually ended up emailing my current job like around when I was finishing the class and was like, hey, like I'm still really interested, and by the way, I just took this design course and so now I feel really comfortable. And they hired me like 2 days later. So,
thank you, Jake Bartlett.
yes, thank you, Jake Bartlett. So I mean, I find that like sometimes you do need those design skills, or you at least need to show that like you're comfortable and you could be in that program and you don't need to have a designer tag team with you.
Mm-hmm. So let's end on a high note. Is there a highlight from your career so far that really shines brighter than the others?
I mean, I feel like you hit on all my highlights and my lowlights early when we were talking with all the follow-up questions you had, but I wanted to just sort of reinforce the whole soft skills thing, or the skills that you learn as you go. Like it's so funny looking back now and being like, of course I was supposed to be a motion designer, because even back, in my first job, I think I was like 2 years into my communications career, like I was very interested in design and animation specifically. I was playing around in Photoshop, and I have like, I think it's still on my LinkedIn profile, there's like a video that I created purely out of Photoshop, which is just like things moving. And I was sort of just like, how can I hack it so that it looks like it's animated, but it's not really. And it's definitely nowhere near as good as you can get with After Effects. And so it's so funny that like for many years I was just waffling on like, what do I want to do? Because like clearly this is like what I love doing, and maybe what I was meant to do. I don't know. That's probably a bit dramatic way to put it. So, I mean, I see a lot of posts on the Square actually about like, oh, I'm at the beginning, so I'm looking for an intern position, or oh, I only have like, I've taken, these 5 classes and now I'm ready for a junior motion design position. And maybe that's the case if you're going to like Buck or something, or I barely know anything about these studios, but like, these really high-end studios or something like that, maybe it does make sense for you to start lower down. But I tell people like, don't sell yourself short. Like I was applying for jobs where they were like, we want 3 to 4 years of experience. And especially if you're career changing, it can be hard to know like, well, I mean, I have 7 years of experience, but I have like 1 year of experience in motion design. So like communication is so important. Like motion design is still so new. It's like 20 years old or something. for a lot of in-house companies, I feel like they're only just realizing like, hey, we actually do need a motion designer like in-house, someone who can really, like get to know our brand and really take our animation to the next level. And they need someone who is not just like, I'm a really great animator, but someone who can really talk to people and help them understand like, this is the process, this is why I need a week to do this, a month, this is why we are taking these particular steps and why it's important to do so, and really kind of like guide people through the entire video process. And that will be your clients, but it'll also be like your team members, if you have team members, like people who might, and your managers and things like that, people who might not understand why you're doing what you're doing, but you understand it, and being able to sort of communicate to them and all the things that you're doing is really important. So all those soft skills, I think sometimes get forgotten.
Solid
really
gold.
Important.
Solid gold. I feel like you've given like just endless awesome advice and wisdom, but I'm at the end of my outline, and I usually give people a chance to give any advice. Is there any other advice that you could give to people of the Square, or anything you'd like to say at all as we wrap up?
I mean, I really do want to thank School of Motion, because I would not be where I am without them. Like, I was just kind of YouTube universitying myself, and I would not be at the level that I am without the classes. I mean, I took animation boot camp and an Illustrator and Photoshop Unleashed like on my own dime, and I was really nervous about shelling out that amount for these classes, but it has been completely game changing. I would not be where I am without them, and of course, like the alumni, the community. I mean, everybody has been so supportive, getting to meet people, getting to talk to people, getting to see their work. It's just been so invaluable. So I wouldn't be where I am without them. And I also will just throw out there, anybody who's a career changer, anybody who is trying to break into this industry, like I feel so fortunate to be where I am now. And I know I'm only at the beginning, but I'm really now focusing on like trying to give back, because I know how hard it is to be in that position of like, I want to do this and I don't know how to get there, or I don't even know exactly what I want to do, but I know I need to be somewhere else. It's such a hurdle sometimes. And so if anybody like wants to sit down and talk and just like, even if it's just to like chat, get to know each other, toss around ideas, like I'm happy to meet with anybody or talk with anybody who's struggling with like their journey and how to get where they're trying to go.
Awesome. I said it before and I'll say it again. You are an inspiration. Well,
Thank you.
Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Okay. I'm going to hit stop recording.